Waiting on anybody?
That's what we were talking about. You were doing the survey. That's what we're talking about.
Are we waiting on anyone else? Okay. Welcome to the March 21st meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission. I would like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and the deliberation session. In the public hearing session, an application or group application on the agenda is called. The applicant makes his or her presentation. Commission members ask questions, if any. Members of the public make their comments. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item, project, and 4 against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. After 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak. And at this point, please summarize your comments. After all opposition speakers have finished, the applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the commission only and not to the applicant or the audience. And please remember to speak directly into the microphone. On routine applications, the applicant may simply raise his or her hand if there are no objections to staff recommendations. I will then announce that the applicant is in full agreement with those recommendations. If there are any questions, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application, and the results of voting can be learned from the planning department. If some issues arise in the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion either to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them, or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, 1 or more commission members may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. A recusal does not necessarily mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. Depending upon the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal when there is only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead, unless both supernumeraries are already voting due distances. The Planning Commission makes final decisions subject to appeal on subdivisions, planning approvals, and plan unit developments, PUDs. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations on zoning applications, with the City Council making the final decision. Please turn off or silence all cell phones at this time. Commissioners and staff, please remember to turn on your microphones when speaking. Roll call: myself, Ms. Libby Latham, Ms. Jennifer Denson, Mr. John Vallis, Mr. Taylor Atchison,
Here.
Mr. Matt Anderson, here. Mr. Nick Amberger,
Here.
and Ms. Bess
Here.
And Mr. Doug Anderson. Oh, sorry. You're just on there. Thank you. Item number 1, new subdivision applications, 721 South Conception Street, bailout bonding subdivision, recommended for tentative of approval.
Jerry Bird, Bird & Company for the owner. We're okay with everything except we would like to ask, condition number 4 is limiting the site to 1 5 acre Just 2 copies of it, Margaret. Those site plans were not available at the time that was turned in, but this property is made up of 2 lots, 2 old lots that were downtown. Each one of them has a existing driveway. Part of the development plan would be to utilize that existing concrete drive that shows on our drawing, on the one you have, as the in driveway, just making a small horseshoe and coming back out the other existing driveway with 4 parking places. So we would like to have 2 parking places, or 2 driveways, if at all possible.
Traffic.
Traffic engineering can be okay with that if the comment were revised to say 1 2-way or 2 1-way, like we've done in the past. Given the location of this driveway and this property, I did check with AlDOT just to make sure they wouldn't be involved in it, and they are in fact not. They don't have a dog in this fight, is what I was told basically. My only suggestion would be to flip-flop it, because that is a one-way street, and so you would get the inbound first, outbound second, and continue in that direction. But yes, I'm okay with 2 one-way driveways. That's fine.
All right. So just reverse the flow of traffic? Yes. Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments? Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Item number 2, 2720 Government Boulevard, Kesco Subdivision. Revised recommend tentative approvals. The applicant present. Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Yes, we are. Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 3, east side of Clear Creek Drive, Clear Creek Subdivision. It's recommended for holdover until April 18th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, 2 things. One, the applicant called. He is ill and unable to make it. However, he did submit a couple of days ago the documents that staff is looking for, and I advised that staff would revise the holdover until the next meeting on April 4th would be our request.
So hold over till April 4th.
Yes, sir.
This is recommended for holdover till April 4th, which will probably be granted. At that time, people will have an opportunity to respond for or against. However, you do have that right now. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this project? Thank you. Item number 4, 5613 and 5617 Cottage Hill Road, Morton Subdivision. Recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? The applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 5, 119 West I-65 Service Road. Ms. Latham is recused. MBE Investments recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 6, 4620 Bitten Spur Road, Channing Court Subdivision. Recommend tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here against? Thank you. Sidewalk waiver applications. Item number 7, 200 Adsco Road, Austell, USA. It's recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? New group applications. Item number 8, Veterans Recovery Resources Subdivision, 1160 and 200 Spring Hill Avenue. 3 parts subdivision, PUD, and zoning, all recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff?
If staff may, in the recommended conditions on the subdivision, we inadvertently omitted compliance with traffic engineering comments regarding the curb cut.
Just, Doug, you may want to, I was involved in the original sale of this from the school board to these folks.
This is a resale from,
I represented the school board. This group purchased it, just at school board, who I represented the school board. If I need to recuse,
how long ago was that sale?
probably a year.
Now you're okay.
You need to add traffic comments.
Yes, full compliance with the traffic engineering comments to be shown on the final plat.
And that's part of the subdivision.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You have it in the PUD, is that correct?
Correct. We had it on the PUD, but we inadvertently omitted it from the subdivision and wanted it to be shown on the plat.
It'll be the same kind.
Yes.
Anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 9, 4059 Hallsville Road. Littlefield Acres subdivision and zoning recommended for approval. Sidewalk waiver recommended for denial. Is the applicant present? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good day. My name is Craig Littlefield. My address is 2295 Burgett Road, Mobile 36605. I am in conjunction with my real estate agent and my survey company doing this recommendation request. The Part A and Part B, the recommendation is for, per the agenda I see, which I am, of course, am in favor of since it is per our request. Third point, the sidewalk waiver, actually a few weeks ago when we met with the mechanical groups to discuss the project, it was actually recommended by them that we request a sidewalk waiver, and the reason for that is multifolded because there is a access ditch right next to the street that carries water runoff, and right adjacent to that are, for lack of a better term, legacy pine trees that are very old growth pines. They're probably, and I'd have to look at the survey diagram, probably 10 or 12 of those trees, and to put a sidewalk in conjunction with the 35-foot setback of city, the additional 10 feet as requested, which I have no trouble with that, would require taking down those trees. If that's not done and the sidewalk was still required to be put on private property, my concern with that is if a sidewalk is on private property, then the owner of the property becomes liable for any accidents that a pedestrian might encounter while they're on the sidewalk. That was my thought about that. So I leave it to the powers that be and the professionals on how to address that situation. That was my concern.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You mentioned at the beginning of the narrative, you were just telling us that you were speaking with someone that recommended you seek a waiver. Who recommended that?
I'd have to look back at the list of people that were at the meeting
It doesn't need to.
a few weeks ago.
It was with, what was this?
It was here on site
Okay.
with some people that recommend some of the different specialities
Okay.
of government, whether it was.
So it was with staff, city staff?
Yes, it was city staff, yeah.
Understood.
Because we were looking at a diagram similar to the one you have on the screen, but it was a bit detailed, and it actually showed the trees right up against the street, where typically in the box that we're looking at there, it's the upper left diagonal along Halls Mill Road, and on each side of the property, there are some rather large pine trees on each side. So I would humbly request that we be granted a sidewalk waiver, otherwise we're going to have to take down a lot of big trees to accommodate that request.
Were there any of the staff here, were you present in that meeting?
Yeah, and if you look at the recommendation, it does say it in agreement with what he was saying, and that in the right-of-way, there's all those trees and the drainage ditch. And our recommendation says, yeah, I don't think they can build it in the right-of-way, so we recommend that, like we do with others, that it can be built on private property, and that's up to the board to decide whether they want to have that or not.
Since you're very familiar, if it is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're very familiar with the site, is there a meander around the trees? I mean, some on the right of way and some through private property to contain some of the trees?
The only way I can see to not take down the trees is to put the sidewalk on private property, and that is where my concern comes in. If we have a sidewalk that would be on my property and somebody gets injured on it, am I the liable person for them being injured on my property?
If your sidewalk's not in good condition, that's the case today
Regardless.
anyway, right? Correct?
Yeah, the city's current ordinances as they relate to sidewalk maintenance is this the responsibility of the budding property regardless.
Right.
So a sidewalk easement it might be a way forward to accommodate that, where it wouldn't necessarily be right away, but it would be within an easement. I have a question for the staff. It looks like on either side of this property there are sidewalks. You know, the vacant lot doesn't have it, but the lot farther down appears to have a sidewalk, and then a lot up there. Do we know, are those sitting in right away, or can't tell? One looks like the one to the, I guess to the right on there, clearly look at the sidewalk. The one to the left, it looks a little narrower too. I don't know. The picture makes it look like. Yeah.
Because I know it's my understanding that any development or change in development along Halls Mill, the current plan is to add additional right-of-way space for future widening of the road or maintenance, so that center line to property owner would be, I believe, 35 feet. So in the development of this project, it's us bequeathing the other 10 feet to make that happen. Because I think the property to the left, I think they've already done that on a survey that I saw, but just looking at the overhead diagram, it doesn't necessarily reflect that.
What makes along Halls Mill challenging is that there is an open ditch. And then the other piece that makes it challenging, I think I speak for most of my commissioners, is that there's also a major recreational facility happening down the road where people could whereby want to walk to that facility. So it's a very much a conundrum in that there's the real estate, the necessary real estate, and then the need are kind of contradicting with one another. Look up here, see the property to the right, there's clearly one right immediately in front of the sidewalk, right there, and then the one property right there, there's one that appears to be a sidewalk across there.
Doug, while they're looking at that, the property owner that abuts the sidewalk takes on the liability for a sidewalk that's in disrepair if someone were to get injured on it, is that correct? If there's not a sidewalk property between you and the street and someone trips on a pine root and falls in the street, is there any sort of... also. So there's a risk associated with not having a sidewalk as well if people are walking in that area. And would this be a scenario where we'd consider a gravel path amongst the trees to?
Mr. Littlefield, can you answer the question as to whether or not those adjoining properties have sidewalks?
I don't recall, but I'd have to get back down there and see for sure. I know there is some sidewalk on a far end of Hall's Mill that was put down closer to where the soccer project is planned. But most of the property around this is light industrial, so I don't recall seeing sidewalk in that area, not to say there's not one.
Thank you.
Okay.
The property to the right, that's not.
Based on a tiny little phone,
Yes.
that sidewalk there appears to be in the right-of-way, and that is a sidewalk.
Is it, it is in fact sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it a sidewalk?
The one I think looked to be a
This-
landscaping bed.
And it doesn't go all the way to the turnout of the driveway.
It
That
looks
appears to
like-
be on private property.
It looks like gravel if you go to
It's
Google.
not, okay.
It's not a sidewalk.
Looks like a landscaping bed.
Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners? We'll take it under consideration and deliberation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. That closes our public hearing session. We'll now enter into deliberation, beginning with the new subdivision applications. Item number 1, 721 South Conception Street, recommended for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
Move for approval, subject to staff recommendations, revising condition 4 to allow 2 one-way curb cuts with the inbound on the far south cut.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I would just like to make a point of mentioning that that the administration is opposed, generally speaking, to more bail bonds operations being put in the area because they don't contribute positively to the neighborhood. We feel like there's potential in the area, but that is not reason ample enough to deny a subdivision application. So I'll be voting in support of the application, but in principle, I'm against it.
You can't speak this right now, sir. You speak to us enough. I'm just messing with you, Bert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Number 2, 2720 Government Boulevard, Kesco subdivision, recommended for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item number 3, Clear Creek subdivision, recommended for holdover until April 4th. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items held over till our April 4th meeting. Item number 4, 5613 and 5617 Cottage Hill Road. Subdivision recommended for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
I move we approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item number 5, 119 West I-65 Service Road. Recommend for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Ms. Latham is recused. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item number 6, 4620 Benton Spur Road, Channing Court Subdivision, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Second.
Properly and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have a question. I realize that the subdivision of this property will now hopefully front Channing Court. So does that automatically trigger a new address when it's platted? I don't know how that works.
Yes, actually, they will need to be assigned new addresses, and then looks like it'll be fronting on Channing Court, so it'd be a Channing Court address.
I think it helps to keep it residential. We had this subdivision before us. Great. Does that need to be part of the subdivision, or is that?
That's just, that becomes automatic. When they come in and they start their various permitting processes, they'll apply for an address.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Sidewalk waiver application, item number 7, 200 Atsko Road. Sidewalk waiver is recommended for approval.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor for waiving sidewalk requirement?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. New group application, 1160 and 1200 Spring Hill Avenue, 3-part subdivision, PUD and zoning, all recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a reminder of the traffic engineering comment to be added to the subdivision, please.
And can you refresh us what that comment was?
Placement of a note on the final plat stating the traffic engineering comments, Spring Hill Avenue, US Highway 98 is an AlDOT maintained roadway. Site is limited to one curb cut with size, location, and design to be approved by AlDOT and traffic engineering and conform to AASHTO standards. Any new on-site parking, include ADA handicap spaces, shall meet the minimum standards as defined in section 64-60 of the city's zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation, adding the traffic comment, and for the PUD, adopting finding of facts A, B, C, and D.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? Item passes. Item number 9, 4059 Halls Mill Road. We'll take separately. Item number A, subdivision application recommended for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Subdivision passes. Part 2, zoning, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation.
Probably moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item C, recommended for denial of sidewalk waiver. Is there a motion?
Chairman, may we have some more conversation about this one?
Sure.
There may be a way to accommodate this. There was a plat that was floating around here, I think, that had a little bit more dimensions on it. Is that it?
The Bill Bundsman.
That's a different project.
That wasn't this application, that's not the Woodman's one.
Okay. All right. So going back to that, going back to the previous drawing, I guess where the property that had the sidewalk on it, it looked like the right-of-way was in fact wider right there. And so if you projected that sidewalk, it would be very, very close to his front door, which looks to be, would probably go through about where he has his handicap parking spot. But if there's probably a compromise if a sidewalk easement was granted, maybe get him on the backside of that ditch. He might have to meander through the trees, but I think he could probably find a compromise that wouldn't be at his front door, but would keep it, because we have dealt with other property along Halls Mill Road where we have required them to add sidewalks in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, see it. It looks like if you projected that sidewalk will be coming in right there. So it's possible he could come in there and get trees. Right. You don't have to put the sidewalk across here. You can get the sidewalk. You can get the sidewalk in on the back side of the trees and not be at the front door of his building. So he could probably do it with a 25-foot sidewalk in the setback. If that was a sidewalk easement, it's 35.
35 from the center.
Oh, we asked for dedication as well? Well, but I think the problem is he couldn't build it. He can't build it. He can't build it in between the road and the ditch without piping the ditch. Just to be on the backside of the ditch. And at 25 feet is about where it could be. Well, he could keep the right of way there, but he could grant a sidewalk easement.
Mr. Chairman, I know it hasn't been necessarily weighty for consideration before, but considering the confusion, not necessarily confusion, but the ambiguity on this one, and the fact that it's isolated, not connected to the other sidewalks, I mean, it doesn't really seem worth it to have to go through all the rigmarole of possibly having to pipe a ditch if there was, or having it in front of the property. It just
in the nature of being consistent with the other properties is what I'm trying to do. We struggle with these every time they come up because, we recognize it's a challenge for these particular set of circumstances to build the sidewalk, but at some point there's likely a need for a sidewalk there. This is a recurring challenge for us.
Over the past couple of years of, even in a challenging circumstance, denying the waivers.
Right.
Exactly.
We've been very consistent about that.
We did that on Chick-fil-A, because they had city trees there and they didn't want them.
Is the applicant still here?
Yes.
Where is he? If this piece of your application was laid over to the next meeting, is that going to slow you down anything you're trying to accomplish? Because I think if we had a little bit more information, we might be able to find a way to accommodate it. And I think that would really just be a sidewalk easement. I just don't know what that dimension would be.
In short, in terms of processing applications, the rezoning still has to be heard by the city council, and that would not occur until after the planning commission's next meeting on April 4th.
Yeah. So you're not objecting to a sidewalk if it could be there, but you wouldn't want to cut down all the trees, and you wouldn't want to have to pipe the ditch and all those things. If the sidewalk were placed just on the back side of the trees, it looks like it would be pretty far away from your building, more in line with where a traditional sidewalk would be, and no trees would likely have to come down, but it might be that the sidewalk easement would be about where the minimum building setback line is. That's something you'd be willing to discuss or give some consideration to?
Can the rezoning not move forward? Is it tied? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I added that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that application would move, subdivision would leave this in. It's the waiver that needs a little bit of time.
I didn't want to shout, so I came down.
Yeah.
I understand the need for the sidewalk, and what I would like to do is do a center of road, the 35 feet, and actually see where it falls on the property. If it's right in the middle of the trees, then that's going to be an issue, whether the city owns the right of way or whether I do, in order to put a sidewalk there. The other course is to put the sidewalk on the homeowner side of the trees so they don't have to be taken down. If that falls within the 35 feet, then that's all well and good.
Mr. Chairman, if I can walk this plat around to him.
So that's what I was trying to recall, the actual footage dimensions.
So there's your trees there. So the sidewalk down here on the property would project through. You wouldn't want the sidewalk right there.
No.
But you could potentially take and put the sidewalk on the back side over here. Maybe you could even snake it in between the trees.
That was in my question.
Right.
This seems to be the real holdup, is basically on this west, but is it okay to, I mean?
Absolutely. And I'm just saying you would have just a sidewalk easement on top of this. It's just an easement, so that you couldn't go there and tear the sidewalks up.
Right.
For anything, but I think that would accommodate what.
Yeah, you're not giving them that, you're just giving them permission to build,
Exactly.
to build it on it, so you would still own the property.
Trees aren't coming
Yeah.
down. Right, exactly. It just makes it allows us to continue to say yes to sidewalks, which we're trying to do that, but doesn't impact you in a negative way either.
Right. So I'm
We can figure
wondering
out where that line actually
where the
is.
35 feet is from center. 20. Let's see.
That's 25.
That's 24. So
25.
So it could be an irregular line, or you could just make it in line with your building setback.
I mean, this line right here is the right-of-way line.
That's
And that's your property line. Yeah.
So another 10 feet is going to be the give to the city for the road expansion down the road.
Your reference line is that this is a 25-foot minimum setback, so that's 20 foot off the property line back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's.
Happy with working with us with an easement for that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Okay.
Sure.
Is there a motion?
Move to deny the waiver, but with the condition that the applicant's going to work with the engineering department to define a sidewalk easement.
Properly moved and seconded. That's a weird. Yeah, that's.
Okay, that's a good point.
That's like a double negative.
Well, let's just, then I'll make the motion just to deny it. Yes, great.
Motion to deny the sidewalk application. It's properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of denial of sidewalk waiver?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Item passes. Is there any other business? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Carlos.
Company that's in the neighborhood now, the contractor on the sidewalk.